Hey there, Alex Kidman here with my quick video review of the Roborock F25. And look, while this pitches itself as a wet and dry vacuum cleaner, like others in its category, what it actually is basically a powered mop with vacuuming as something of a secondary feature. And look, stylistically, this is a thing that looks much more like a traditional upright vacuum cleaner than anything else. Just one with a dirty water tank strapped to the front and a clean water tank strapped to the mop base. Now that's a slightly different design idea, and it has a couple of effects on the F25. On the positive side, it puts the weight towards the bottom, which does give it a different kind of motion, a different kind of weighting in your hand while you're using it. Some people might like that, some people might not. This is a slightly heavier robot vacuum cleaner, actually. The downside for me, though, is it makes it much harder to work out what the water level actually is, because with an upright vertical tank, of course, you can just kind of eyeball that and go, all right, it's half full, it's quarter full, whatever. Because you're looking down on a horizontal flat water surface, it's a lot harder to tell exactly how much water is present. That horizontal mop head does mean that the head is quite compact. The base is not. This is the base. It's also the charging base, and that's part of the reason why it's quite large. But that might have an implication for if you wanted to hide it away. It shouldn't normally have a white cable, by the way. This is an international unit, so I had to adjust for an Australian cable, but an Australian model should have the right colour-matched cable to go with it. To quickly deal with the question that came up the last time I reviewed one of these kinds of devices, whilst this advertises itself as a wet, dry vacuum, realistically, it's a mop. You really should not and would not want to use it on your carpets, although, as you can see here, it fits rather nicely on my stairs. I do rather like that particular style of it. Setup is pretty simple. You more or less just got to slot the handle in at the top here and then add water and cleaning solution. You do get a small bottle of it with the F25, and Roborock says it will work with any Roborock approved solutions, although there's a lot out there and it's not always clear whether or not they're approved or just saying, oh yes, we're compatible. So yeah, you may be taking your chances there, but it works fine with just clear water anyway. It's also really chatty. Just dial down the noise so you can still hear me talk. It'll talk to you when it's starting up. It'll talk to you when it's stopping. It'll talk to you when it wants to be cleaned. It'll talk to you when it wants the water tank removed because it's finished its cleaning cycle. It chats a lot in multiple languages, which is nice, but there's no way to adjust the volume, which could be problematic for some, especially if you live in a small apartment with thin walls, for example. It can also tilt down to basically flat to go under furniture, which is quite neat, quite useful. There are some limits, though, as you can see here. For example, I'm actually hitting the underside there with the body of the F25, not so much the mop head, so I can only go in so far. Obviously, that's going to depend on your furniture, but a nice thing to be able to get in under things relatively easily. General mopping and cleanup is quite good, but of course, you want proof. So what will it make of these artfully arranged coffee grounds that I've spilled on my kitchen floor? Let's find out. So the cleanup here is actually pretty good. The one thing I will say is it's not actually touch dry. Like my hands are going across just a little bit of moisture there. It'll just need a little bit of drying time to be good. Oh no, I seem to have artistically spilled some flour on my floor now. I really must stop doing that. I wonder how the F25 will manage that one.
Auto mode.
My one note with the flour, as you can see, it's pushed some of it just down into the cracks in between the boards there. That's kind of the nature of having something roll over it in that way. Otherwise, it's reasonably clean, reasonably clear. Still a little bit damp, though. Uh-oh. There seems to have been a murder on my kitchen floor. Nobody tells the cops, okay? I'm just going to hide the evidence, if I can. The perfect crime. There's no evidence left whatsoever. Because, of course, nothing happened. Nothing happened whatsoever. Let's get on with the review.
Self-cleaning is starting, followed by quiet drying.
Its self-cleaning mode is really effective, but it's also really quite loud. And that could be an issue, of course, if you do live in like a small apartment with thin walls. Here we can see it cleaning up that delightful mix of flour and coffee and tomato sauce. Oh, that's an unpleasant smoothie. And once it's done, you've then got to pop that out, of course, and empty it. And it will remind you to do this. I will say that opening up the dirty water container can be a little tricky. It requires a bit more force than you might expect. It's a little bit, it's all but impossible, in fact, to do one-handed. You've got to do it two-handed, and you've got to apply a little bit of force before throwing away the actual dirty water, which I'm going to do now. Warning, very unpleasant fluid incoming. Yeah, I wouldn't drink that if I were you, but I think the garden will appreciate it a bit more than I do. It'll just soak in, and then I've just got to rinse the container out to get it back to fully clean. In terms of battery life, Roborock rates it as being good for up to 60 minutes of usage, although that's in its eco mode. The default is auto, where you'll get a bit less. Honestly, I don't have the wide scale of hard floors to completely exhaust this within a cleaning cycle. And one of the advantages of having the base where you put it be the charging base is it's probably not going to run out of power unless you have to do a lot of cleaning a lot of the time. One particular trap here, though, is if you do pull it away before it's finished drying the mop heads, you can end up with a little bit of extra water residue left on your floors. Again, that's kind of to be expected. The water's got to go somewhere, you know. So should you buy the Roborock F25? Well, look, at $6.99 Australian, this is not an inexpensive power mop. And obviously, you've got to have the need to regularly clean hard surfaces with it for it to make sense. It's a rather specific tool, and obviously that could make it an expensive proposition if you've only got smaller areas of floor to keep clean. It is, however, quite effective at cleaning, even with just a straight water mix, and the hands-off nature of most of its self-cleaning does make it a decent option. However, and this is probably the biggest catch, it is weighted a little differently to other power mops I've tested in the past, and that does have an effect on how it moves around and how it feels in the hand. That will suit some users beautifully, but possibly be too much weight in the base for others. If you've got the scope to go to a showroom and actually roll one around on the floor just to get the feel for how it's weighted, that would be particularly advisable before deciding whether to purchase one. It's a good powered mop. It does what it says it will do, and it does it quite well, but I'd suggest some hands-on time is a really, really good idea. Anyway, that's my take on the Roborock F25. Got any questions? Hit me up in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.